Please be taken.
Okay, we're going to be dealing with properties of exponents here. I want you to work on Exploration 1 on page 168 with your groupies, please.
Where are we? This one. I'm on this one. Oh. So no, that'd be 4 to the 6. You leave the base. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to pause you real quick. On Exploration 1, what'd you find here? When you multiply two powers with the same base, write the product as a single power. What's the general rule? Just add them? Yeah, add what?
The powers. Add the x powers.
Yeah, you add the powers, the exponents there. So you got 2 squared, which is 2 times 2, and 2 to the third, which is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 2 to the fifth. The other way to think about it is 2 to the 2 plus 3. Now, I saw some of you using your calculator on it. You're like, well, if I do this and multiply it by this, do I get the same thing as 2 to the 5th, or do I have to multiply these and get 2 to the 6th? Okay? It's good. All right. How many got all those? Okay, moving on to part B. How many are done with part B? Okay, give you guys another minute or two to work on that one. Okay, let's check out part B. So we have the same base. It's a key piece. You have to have the same base, which is the bigger number here. So 4 to the, what do? Yeah, we have to subtract them. 4 to the 3 minus 2, which is 4 to the first, or just 4. Please note, if you're struggling with this, write it in expanded form. That's 4 times 4 times 4 over 4 times 4. Okay, these cancel. I'm just left with 4 to the first. Okay, if you ever struggle with remembering the powers, you can always write it out in expanded form. So that'd be like having 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 all over 2 times 2. Cancel out your 2's, you're left with 2 to the third power. The quick way is to just think, hey, subtract my exponent. So I get 2 to the 5 minus 2, which is 2 to the third. Okay? X to the 6 minus 3, or x cubed, and 3 to the 4 minus 4, or 3 to the 0. It is. What's that? Yeah, you'd have to put the 0 there. Yeah. All right, letter C. What happens when you find the power of a power? Yeah. This means I have 4 2 squared. So that's going to be 2 squared times 2 squared times 2 squared times 2 squared, which is 2 to the 8. 7 cubed times 7 cubed is 7 to the 6th. What's the shortcut? Yeah, just multiply them. If you have a power outside of parentheses, just multiply them. Hey, guys in the back row, quiet down, man. 7 to the 3 times 2. 2 to the 2 times 4. Y to the 3 times 3, or y to the 9th. X to the 4 times 2, or x to the 8th. All right. So right now, you guys need, right here, this is a good, this last problem, that's a good summary for that one. This number 3 is a good summary for that rule. This number on letter A, which is a good summary for it. Like, which summarizes that rule? The X one, the general form. Okay? So, if you need to, hey, this is what, if you need to remember what we learned at a later time, it's good to say, hey, here's what's happening. I'm subtracting my powers, or I'm adding my powers, or I'm multiplying them. Any questions there? Sarah? You'd to write it out in expanded form, you can see why that happens. So you're adding, because this is 2 squared, so you have 2 2's, and you have 3 2's here. So when you put them all together, you're putting more in. You're not taking away. Whereas here, you're canceling them out. Okay? I want you guys to take a look at the next page, page 169. Okay, part D. Going to expand on that. What happens when you find the power of a product? Go ahead and work on part D together there. All right. Hey, let's check it out. 2 times 5 is 10, but we're squaring that. So what I want to do is I want to actually say I have 2 of these 2 times 5s. I have 2 times 5, and I have a 2 times 5. That 2 out there means I have 2 of them, which means I actually have 2 2's and 2 5's. So this thing gets brought into both. So I end up with 2 squared times 5 squared. Okay. This one's going to be 5 to the third and 4 to the third. So it's like you're distributing that power to each thing. Here you have 6 squared and a squared. Here you have 3 squared and x squared. Now usually we would simplify this and call it 9x squared and 36a squared. But for what we're doing right here, they just wanted you to write it out as finding the power of a product. Okay? All right. Any questions there? Try to summarize that using one of your examples. Explain to yourself what you're doing so when you look back to this later, you'll be like, oh yeah, I just brought that power in. I squared both parts on the inside. All right, I want you to try letter E once you're done there. Try letter E. All right, let's check it out. Okay, this is 2/3 squared, which means 2/3 times 2/3. So how many 2's do you have? 4. 2 2's and 2 3's. Okay? So really what's happening is this is going into both parts. Right? Same thing happens here. 4/3 times 4/3 times 4/3. You have 4 to the third power and 3 to the third power. Here we go. Got it? So this is x cubed and 2 cubed. And this is a to the 4th and b to the 4th. So summarize your power property there. Well, there's a couple other properties. Anything raised to the power of 0 is so here's what I want you to do. I want you to take and write down this pattern on your paper. Okay? Right there. Just write, or not that pattern, write down all those numbers on your paper. All those exponents, please. Just like that. Let's go ahead and see. 2 to the 4th is what? Oh, tough. Okay, 2 to the 4th is 16, correct? Okay, 2 to the 3rd is what? 8? Okay, that's true. Keep going. Figure out all those there. Too hard? No, you got them all? Okay? Hey, what's the pattern happening? Yeah, it's divided by 2, right? I mean, that should be obvious if you're multiplying up here by 2. So you're dividing by 2. Okay? You're dividing by 2. Notice when you get to 2 to the first, 2 to the first is 2. When you divide that by 2, continuing this pattern, you get 2 to the 0, which is 1. And then when you go from there, you divide by 2 again, that's 2 to the negative first, which is 1/2. And divide by 2 again, that's 2 to the negative second, which is 1/4. And then 2 to the negative third, which is 1/8. And 2 to the negative fourth, which is 1/16. And if you notice, you start counting by these numbers down here. That 2 and that 2. That 4 and that 4. That 8 and that 8. That 16 and that 16. This is saying 2 to the negative first is really just 1 over 2 to the first. 2 to the negative second is really 1 over 2 to the second. This is 1 over 2 to the third. This is 1 over 2 to the fourth. So anytime you have a negative exponent, all you're doing is writing it as a fraction. So if I gave you 2 to the negative fifth, really all you're doing is taking that and you're writing it as a fraction, and then you're moving that piece down to the bottom and dropping your negative symbol. So that's what you do with those negative ones. Okay, it's 1 over 2 to the fifth. All right, so some of the core concepts, and these are in your student journal, but anything raised to the 0 power is 1. Doesn't matter what the number is. Anything, any negative exponents. Okay, you change the side of the fraction it's on. So if you're a 4 to the negative second, it goes to the bottom, becomes 4 squared on the bottom. If you have a to the negative n, you move it to the bottom. Now, if it's already on the bottom, you move it up, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay? Questions there? All right. Very good. Okay. All right. Why don't you try A and B there on your own? Okay? Do it in your note page that you grabbed on the way in. So, no calculator needed. All right, so what is 6.7 to the 0? It is 1. Anything to the 0 is 1. This one right here, write it as a fraction and move it to the bottom. So that becomes 1 over negative 2 to the fourth. Which means 1 over negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, or 1 over, what's a negative times negative times negative times negative? It's positive. And 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. And then times one more 2, 16. Those are all negative, so negative times negative times negative times negative is positive. 1/16. All right. Any questions there? All right, let's expand it. A little more difficult. Try that guy there. Okay. See how you did. 4x to the 0 over y to the negative third. I am going to break these things apart. I'm going to put my multiplication symbol in there. Okay. On the top, x to the 0 is what? It's 1. So on top I have 4 times 1. On bottom I have y to the negative third. Now if the negative is on the bottom, I just move it to the top, and then the power becomes positive. The exponent becomes positive. That gives me 4 times 1 times y to the third. Okay? Which simplifies to just 4y to the third. So if your negative exponent is on the bottom, move it to the top and it becomes positive. Okay? How many got it right? All right. What's that? Oh, you'd be left with 1 on the bottom. That's place value whole of 1. Yeah. Okay. Let's see how you do now. Give them a go. Okay, let's see how we did. Number 1 is?
A lot.
Is 1. Anything to the 0 is 1. How many got that one? Anything to the 0 is 1. Make a note of it. Okay? Next one. The negative exponent. That's 1 over 3 to the 3rd. Notice you move it to the bottom and drop the negative with the exponent, which gives you 1 over 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. 1 over 27. How many got it? Yes, question? If it's a negative exponent, it moves to the other side of the fraction. Nope. Okay, and so this one right here, this, just so you know, means negative 1 times 5 to the 0 power. That does not mean negative 5 to the 0. In order for it to be negative 5 to the 0, you'd have to have parentheses around it. Okay, it doesn't have parentheses around it, so it means negative 1 times 5 to the 0. Well, I just did. Yeah. So what do I get on top? What's 5 to the 0? That's 1. So I'm left with negative 1 on top. On bottom, I have 2 to the negative 2nd. What happens to the 2 to the negative 2nd? We bring it up. Okay? That's going to move up here now. So we get 2 to the negative 2nd. Becomes 2 to the positive 2nd now when we move it up. And 2 squared is? That's 4. So we have negative 1 times 4, which is? Negative 4. Dude, tougher rules there, right? So really the rules that usually mess people up are dealing with this like having this negative 1 out here and then dealing with that negative exponent. So when I simplify this one, what happens to this piece? What happens here? Okay, so on top I'm left with? Yeah, if everything moves, it's left with 1. 1 over, what's y to the 0? 1. So 1 over 3 squared and x to the 5th. Which is?
A number.
What number? No, well, you multiply by 1. So that 1 that's down there is being multiplied, so it doesn't change it.
9x to the 5th.
All right. There, got it. Okay. I want you guys to take a look at your student journal. Page 172, please. Page 172. Okay, right now, on page 172, I want you to work through problems 1 through 14, please. 1 through 14. That's your assignment right now. Okay, don't cross anything out, but 1 through 14 right now. Okay? Okay, give me a second. Hold on 1 second.
When you move it down, and you just move 5 over the 0, why is it negative? Would it have to
be 2 to the 3rd on the
okay,
bottom.
I was
Yeah.
okay, that's 2 to the
Okay, you guys, I've had a lot of people ask about number 3. Hey, becomes a fraction. This just moves down. 1 over 3 to the 4th. And then you've got to evaluate that. So 1 over 3 to the 4th is 81. It's not 12. It's 81, right? 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, not 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. Okay? All right, so remember, it just moves. The other way to think about it, if you have 3 to the negative 4th, it just moves to the bottom. Think of it putting a 1 up there and making that positive. Okay? All right. Go ahead and finish through number 14 there.